What's up guys, welcome back to Unlimited Reads. My name is Chris and today I'll be giving my spoiler-free review of The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Written in 2006, it's become an instant classic. It's been well received by the critics and ultimately the book went on to win the coveted Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2007, the highest accolade a writer could ever hope to achieve. Now, McCarthy has been getting quite a bit of attention lately, what with the release of The Passenger in October last year, followed closely by its sequel, Stella Maris. Those two books are selling hand over fist, and I can't help but be impressed that McCarthy, turning 90 this year, is still being a prolific enough writer to release two books within a month of each other. It is so impressive. Hats off to him. I first became aware of McCarthy only recently after watching a few booktubers talk about his 1985 book Blood Meridian, which was, it's had mixed reviews. Some people like it, some people don't. And when I found a copy of The Road in a second-hand bookstore, because he was on my radar, I just had to have it, particularly when I noticed that the cover blurb intrigued me no end, and I thought, I'm going to read this soon. And an opportunity came up to pick up the book just this week because I have been reading The Count of Monte Cristo for the month of January as part of a read-along with another couple of booktubers. I had been struggling with it, I needed a breather from it, and I thought what perfect book to pick up than The Road, and I'm glad I did because I ripped through it in no time flat. So what is it about? So there's not much to the plot. A father and his young son are constantly on the move across a ravaged landscape that's been affected by fire, and there's no place where it doesn't snow ash, and civilization as we know it has collapsed. And there are a few survivors scattered across America, and both of these characters have to overcome massive obstacles in order to survive this strange new world. At just 306 pages, I ripped through it. It was so addictive. Now, this book intrigued me from the get-go because of how it was actually written. The format was really different. There are no chapters, which isn't a deal breaker because there are plenty of scene breaks. But, you know, there are no inverted commas for punctuation at all throughout the whole book, which I found odd, and the word don't doesn't even have an apostrophe. Now, also the main characters are referred to as just the boy and the man. Ordinarily, a book written in such a manner would frustrate me to hell, but it's extraordinary. This book, even though those unusual elements were prevalent, it didn't make me want to do that. I enjoyed the story so much because it was so compelling that all those unusual elements took a back row seat, and it did not matter, and it was just something a little bit different and stands out from the crowd. Throughout the course of the novel, both characters trek for miles upon miles across a tortured landscape trying to reach the southern coast, and they have to contend with weather, marauding parties, exposure, starvation, and just when there seems to be no hope, there's a couple of instances where they experience a little bit of fortune, but at times the book does get a little bit depressing and bleak and grey with no real future in sight, so it's a pretty depressive book overall. Now, I also have a favourite passage that I've taken from the book, and I'm always on the lookout for really good descriptive passages that make you read it again because they're so enjoyable, and I'll share it with you now. The mummied dead everywhere, the flesh cloven from the bones, the ligaments dried to tug and taut as wires, shrivelled and drawn like latter-day bog folk, their faces of boiled sheeting, the yellowed palings of their teeth. They were discalced to a man like pilgrims of some common order, for all their shoes were long since stolen. Just things like that are brilliant, and he does it in such a way that's so unique. And I just love picking out little snippets like that because they're a treat to read, and you find yourself going back and reading them 2 or 3 times because they just have an effect on you. Now, McCarthy never reveals how the landscape got burnt. I think he did that deliberately so that as a reader you can draw your own conclusions. There are a couple of instances where he refers to life with his wife, who is now dead, before the fires began, but they're only little snippets. I think he's left it up to the reader to speculate. Now, the relationship between the father and son, he's captured superbly. The ending is absolutely heartbreaking and tragic, and people have claimed to be depressed by the book, and I can see where they're coming from, but in my experience I found that there was a glimmer of hope towards the end of the book, and it just answers the question that if society collapses like it did, are there any good people still left in the world? And yeah, so even though, yes, the book does have a very depressive element, there is a glimmer of hope and a silver lining at the end, just from my experience. Both characters were so engaging, they seemed very real, and how McCarthy describes the world is great. Just enough details to let your imagination do the rest. And the book was such a huge surprise hit for me that I can't recommend it enough. If you haven't read the book, I urge you to pick it up, and I guarantee it will have you hooked from start to finish. So there you go, guys. That is it for my review. I love the book and can't wait to read The Passenger next. I'm going to fast track that in the next month. I can be pretty sure I'll be picking it up. As always, please leave any feedback in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. Let me know if you've read the book and what you think. Is it one of your favorites? How did it affect you? I'd be very interested for you to tell me, and I'm always up for a chat about it. So let's compare notes. But yeah, until the next video, guys, I'll see you later.